I was the hall monitor and I ran the school store. You guys were flipping dollars
behind your back,
selling candy bars
behind your back.
Yep. Taking your money.
Hey. Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for watching our first podcast. This is episode 2 of I Got a Guy. I'm Eric. This is Andrew. This is going to be an amazing episode for you guys. We have Mr. Entrepreneur with us today, Mike Martinec, CEO of PSI. We're going to take you through his entire life. We're going to give you some of his trade secrets. Mike, thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. I mean, this is a pretty, I'm very flattered to say the least. First guest on your new show. I'm just excited to be here and let's have some fun today.
Yeah, man, glad you could join us.
Mike, we're more excited to have you.
Yeah.
Trust me. You are everything we aspire to be.
Yes.
Oh, I don't
Believe
know
that.
about
Yeah, you have a high mark to meet today. Trust me.
Oh, man.
You got 2 little millennial sponges staring at you. Just wanted to soak up everything that you're talking about today. Trust me. So let's do this. We really just want to jump right into it. Mike is an owner, an operator. He is everything that Andrew and I, again, aspire to be because he's been doing this his whole life. He has been a worker. He's been a leader. And we kind of want to share some of those things because a lot of you out there are owners, aspiring to be owners. And this is the guy. This is our guy as it relates to entrepreneurship.
And I think, Eric, too, it depends a little bit special to me because, Mike, you're in manufacturing. And that's kind of what I kind of grew here. So it was a good key way to get you on to kind of relate to that. Hopefully touch on some more bases there. But yeah, I mean, this is good.
I can't tell by your shirt. You work in manufacturing, Andrew?
Sometimes, what day of the week
That's so
is it?
interesting.
You got to squeeze in the pitch when you
Yeah,
can.
right. I had to do a little clothing change real quick before we recorded today. So
You didn't look good before.
Oh,
But now you look you look
spiffy.
really good.
Spiffy. This is the new apparel.
Oh, yeah.
Woolly apparel.
Real
But,
sure.
There we go.
but yes, back to the
So, Mike, I want to jump in.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity to chat with you. We know you pretty well. I've been on the golf course with you. We'll talk about that a little
Sorry
bit.
about that.
It was okay. It wasn't the best, but hey, we had a good time. So let's go all the way back, man. Let's go to your childhood.
All right.
Okay. You told us some crazy stories about your childhood. Tell us, what were you into? How did that kind of mold who you are today? Jump into that a little bit.
I think to start off, I was lucky enough that I just realized what my biggest talent was pretty early in life. I mean, I came from an engineer dad, hardcore engineer, all about the math, all about the numbers, and he helped design a lot of the cockpit materials in almost every commercial airplane you can think of today.
Whoa.
So had a hand in developing the black box. Everybody knows what that is.
Oh, yeah.
So you're talking a guy that lives and breathes numbers and technology. So he literally, at the age of 2 or 3, I would say, was hitting me with square roots in the car. Hey, what's the square root of 16? I don't know, what's the square root? So that was the big thing for me is he knew I was good at math right off the bat. And then I knew I was good at math. So I used that to my advantage at a younger age.
Is it weird that I do that to my wife? I'll call her and I'll be like, "Hey, honey, how are you? What's the square root of 16?" Just to see if she's on her game.
So is that just a test?
I don't know if he was. And I could swear to God that is exactly what I do to her on a regular basis. But so he's talking about square roots. You're great at math at this point. I mean, how old are you?
Like I said, 3 or 4. At
3 or
best.
4.
At best.
I barely made it at 16 doing math. Math is not my strong suit.
That's being really nice.
Yeah. That's been nice.
So you're
Everyone
doing
has their strength, right?
Yeah, right?
you're doing square roots. Your dad's an engineer mindset. So are you building stuff as a kid? Is it toys you're building, or are you trying to build something else?
So that's where the disappointment comes in from him is that he thought I'd be like him and take stuff apart and figure out how it works and build stuff and make stuff. No, I was like, I just want to sell stuff to other people. I don't want to really. I know I can make money doing this. I don't want to make it. I just want to let someone else make it and sell it to you.
It's weird. I was actually
That's the easy part.
the opposite, where my dad, very numbers, he's a CPA, he knows his stuff. I was the opposite. I was trying to take things apart to understand how they worked. Not really necessarily the numbers never really stuck to me. I was more intrigued of the creativity. So it's interesting, especially the same field we're in, almost on spot how different that is. But
I do not relate at all. I had a stick and a ball in my hand, and if I could throw something or hit something, that's all I was interested in.
Yeah.
Throwing, hitting balls. I didn't take apart things, and I wasn't a curious child. I was on the complete opposite spectrum. So
It's a little different walks of life here.
it very
Isn't
much is.
Isn't it strange though how you can have the same natural skill but use it for something completely different? That's where
It's interesting how, again, parents, the way they raise children and the environment they get raised in, you could have, I'm a twin. We are completely different. We were raised the complete same way. We had loving, awesome parents, and we're completely different. And our skill sets are completely different. He's a very analytical mind, and I'm this. I'm what you see here today, just this big jabbermouth. So,
Which we love so much.
thank you, Andrew. That means so much.
I mean, it's cool how that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? I mean, I'm very intrigued by that. So
It is, so you're doing square roots. Your dad's this engineer. I mean, like, are you doing anything else in your childhood that kind of shaped where you are today? Like, whether it be your young adulthood. Like, I know we talked a lot about baseball cards and candy. I know that's it's a little bit weird of a combination, but they mean something to you, right? That shaped who you are today.
oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of where the first realization I had that I could use my math skills to do something more than just write it on a paper or impress my dad that I could do square roots. It was, I'll tell you, the moment I had, like, was the entrepreneurial first, I guess, like the big bang of entrepreneurship for me was just, I know I like candy bars. I admit it. I'm a sweets guy. I like candy.
Amen.
So I would spend, my little 50 cents. Shoot, I don't know what it was when I was there, but let's just say 50 cents to make it easy. I put my little 50 cents in, get my Kit Kat. Didn't think too much about it. My parents take me on this glorious trip to Sam's Club, if anybody knows Sam's Club.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at stuff. I'm just kind of looking around as a little kid and like, wait a second. That box of candy bars is $6 for 24 candy bars. That's a quarter each. And I'm paying 50 cents for those. So my first instinct was, hey, let's buy these. I'll save myself a quarter a candy bar. But then it said, well, wait, I wonder if anybody else would want this discount. So then I said, but wait, that doesn't do me any good if I sell them for a quarter. So why don't I split the difference, sell them for 40 cents and take them to school, make a little money. And that's without even knowing that's what business was at the time. So that was kind of the light that went off like, oh, I had no idea that was business at the time. And then that morphed into baseball cards, which was the same concept of the packs at the store. Then I go to Sam's Club and get them. Same thing.
You're the epitome of a Hallmark movie.
It's interesting because you're right. I did, so instead of candy, I had gum, right? So I was the gum guy in high school. I had pack of gum. I don't know this story. Went to Costco. My mom chewed it like it was her job. So of course I'm taking a pack. It was in her purse, right? Mothers always have random things in their purse. And so I was taking it to school and I noticed like kids are just always asking for gum. And eventually I was like, hang on, I could sell these by the pack, by the stick, whatever. And again, it didn't really click. You just kind of were like, I guess I could, hey, this is some extra spending cash. Like, let me see what I can get away with it. And it didn't really click until later down the road. You're like, wait a minute, that's business. That's making money.
Wait a second. I was the hall monitor and I ran the school store. You guys were flipping dollars
behind your back,
selling candy bars
behind your back.
Yep, taking your product.
Hey, I mean, look, like I said, it's a different path for everyone, man. And it's just what happens.
It's insane how we all ended up in the same room.
Here we are.
It is. So touch on the baseball cards a little bit, Mike, because I think at the end of the episode, guys, we're gonna. I don't know how much you guys do the whole card collecting. I love the Pokemon stuff, and we talked about that a little bit. Well, I'm a baseball card collector myself. My dad and I have tons of cards. I actually was talking to him before this. We've got cards and cards and cards, and I thought we were the card collectors, and we don't touch what you do. But I want you to talk about the time you spent in the baseball store, because I think it sets a good premise to entrepreneurship. But I also want you to talk about baseball card collecting in general and just why it's so important to you.
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned selling the packs. That was my upgrade from the candy to the packs of cards. Well, what that morphed into is going to the local baseball card shop and them saying, why don't you buy packs anymore? I said, well, I can get them cheaper at Sam's Club. No offense. I mean, it's just dollars and cents.
Yeah.
They're like, really? Have you ever had a job before? This is at 13. I said, no. Why would I have had a job? Hey, you want to come work here after school a few days a week? Sure. So that was my first job, my first real paid job. They paid me mostly in baseball cards and dinner at the pop shop next door, but I'll take it. But that was like the next level of training.
Wait, what's a pop shop? Like a soda shop? Well, I'm just figuring out if we're talking the same language here.
Oh my gosh.
Like you would buy like root beer floats or something, right? Here's what you're talking about.
I think that's just what it was called.
Okay, cool.
It was basically a fancy 7-Eleven.
Okay, fair enough.
I was like, did you play
Genuinely
music on
call
the
me off
jukebox
guard.
too?
You generally call me a pop
Did you put your
shop?
50 cents from your candy bars in the jukebox?
Yeah, there you go. Keep going. Sorry.
That's what it was actually called.
Yeah, there you go.
It was, I think the name of the store was the Pop Shop. It was basically a modern day Royal Farms.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So that led me to the next level of my entrepreneurship training was that I noticed, so they bought boxes of cards. They were sitting up on the shelf. Some sold really fast. Some sat there forever and got dust on them. I'm like, well, why are we stocking these things? They're like, oh, well, we have a standard 10% markup on whatever we get at wholesale. Put them up there. That's what we do and hope it sells. That just didn't sit right with me. I'm like, well, why don't you just buy less or none of that stuff, a ton of that stuff, and mark it up more if it's selling? Like, just charge more for it if people were buying it so fast. That's too much work. Huh? How about you run that whole thing and we'll just go in the back and smoke cigars and play cards? I'm like, all right, that works. So that was the thing I did. It was my first job, first experience with real business. My dad and I collected cards together, so that's why it's meaningful to me. I played baseball growing up, math guy, love statistics, it was bonding. So that was kind of the first real dive into it of owning my own thing.
And to give the people watching here today, how many cards exactly did you have?
So I was trying to figure it out because I was given an ultimatum about, okay, we might be downsizing the next couple of years. You need to get your cards out of my house. This is my parents, like this summer. I don't want them, they're not worth anything. I calculated I had darn near 500,000 cards.
Small amounts,
Right.
500,000.
That is insane. And you know, you obviously have an understanding of the value of them. And at 13, you even saw value in them. And now you're an adult with a family, you still see value in them. Is it something that you're trying to invest in? Are you going to buy more cards? Are you looking to sell your cards? Like, what is, again, that entrepreneurial mindset? What do you want to do with them now that you have them?
So unfortunately, for better or for worse now, I'm trying to downsize. I'm just trying to lead a more simple life. So it's more purging what we have and trying to just have what we need, not have a bunch of collectible stuff. So I've basically transformed to selling off most or just disposing of most of the hundreds of thousands of dollars of cards and reinvesting them into some key players like your Manny Machado's, Adley Rutschman, the new Orioles guy.
Where are you selling them? Do you have a specific, is it Craigslist, eBay, like in person? What is your platform that you sell on?
eBay's the way to go. Just because you reach because if I'm selling a Derek Jeter card, nobody's going to buy a Derek Jeter around here. So, I mean, maybe some people will, but that opens my market to New York. You know, if I'm selling a Griffey card, that opens my market to Seattle. If I'm selling a Trout card, that opens it to California. So it just gives you so much more of a customer base when you sell them on eBay.
So you'll leverage eBay shipping, their platform, their reach, and then you'll just pick, pack, ship, and send it through the post office or whatever. And interesting. Yeah, I'm a big eBay user myself, and I've sold a ton of golf clubs. That was always, every time I had golf clubs, I would go in and sell it. And a golf club is not fun to ship, personally. And I, again, come from the logistics world, not a good time. I would assume with a baseball card, are you just throwing it in little packs? And because my fear, and it's interesting, and again, I don't know if this means anything, but like, what if that thing gets destroyed in transit? Like, are you doing anything special to protect them? Or
yeah, I take extra cards. It's easy to pack baseball cards. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I have the supplies set up. You have the padded envelopes, the card cases. You put it in there. They're gold.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't just throw them in an envelope and say, here you go. They're in a top-loaded case, in a padded envelope with reinforcement around that. It's a higher dollar.
So how does it? I know because Eric brought it up, and it's been a pretty popular thing around. Like when you do find them, I guess the condition, right? That plays a big factor in the price. As far as I think you're supposed to put them in a specific sleeve, and then you can send them out to get the price. I mean, explain that a little bit.
So that's the game now. So as far as modern cards go, you would expect them to come out pristine, which they don't, which is embarrassing for quality control. As we know in manufacturing, I don't know how in today's day and age you can't cut a piece of cardboard straight. Like in 1975, I get it.
Right, but nowadays,
like I get a card and you're excited, like, oh, look at this autograph rookie card with a ding corner and off center. Thanks, Topps.
Right,
that's
one
pretty
job.
Cool. Yeah, cut it straight. With modern CNC.
Literally.
Like, come on.
I guess that is true. Aren't they cutting the cards with a CNC
I mean,
router.
it's probably a full production process where
Yeah.
it's cut, stamped, or labeled or laminated with whatever the card is, and then I'm sure they have a random set of first editions, or at least that's what I saw with Pokemon, like first edition
Yes.
and then special edition. So I don't see how you can't mess that up. I mean, it's only as
You
good
would
as the
think.
machine, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
But I kind of got away from answering your initial question. So what has value these days of the older cards? I will say probably like 0.01% of all the cards back. So of my 400,000, there's maybe 200 that are worth anything that's even worth my time to address them. But that being said, it's all about condition, because you don't think about this, but some of my 1992 Derek Jeter rookie card, that card's almost 30 years old now.
Yeah, I know.
30-year piece of cardboard that at the time they didn't have the quality control. They've been handled. How many have been destroyed in wildfires, floods, earthquakes? So there's very few that are in good condition. So that's where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you I'd say this is probably sad to admit, 'cause I'm sending cardboard. It's one of the most nervous moments of my life is I had 17 cards out of my entire collection identified that were great shape. They looked perfect. I think they could be graded well, but you have to send them across the entire country to get them graded in a package. And you can't really insure them because they want you to see that you paid money for them. So if they lost them, be like, oh, those cards are worth $5,000. They're like, oh yeah, show me where. I'm like, well, I'll pull them out of this box over here. Just look them up in a price guide. They're like, so you can't insure them. They're worth potentially thousands of dollars, and they're sending across the country with the U.S. Postal Service at that, which we know how that's been going.
Mess. I don't know about you guys. It's terrible.
Terrible.
Two weeks out on some stuff.
2-3 weeks on 2-day priority. Man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
So that's what the game is now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, and before we jump into the next topic, I remember I was watching all these famous influencers buying Pokemon cards. So I called my parents
Oh my
and I was
God.
like, Mom, Dad, go give me my old Pokemon book, and I'm going to go through them. And I started going through them, and I actually had some cards. And then I called Andrew, and I was like, Andrew, where's your Pokemon cards? He goes, somewhere in my basement, I don't care. And
Find
I go,
them.
give me your key to your house. I'm going to go to your house right now, and I'm going to I'm going to take your Pokemon cards, and I'm going to sell them for both of us. And he goes, yo, I'm sure I have like nice Pokemon cards. And I was like, Andrew, this is priority number one. And I pressed on him for 2 weeks. He never said his dad.
And there's only like 100 cards. I can imagine 400,000. Like, I was like, Eric, I'm not going to do it. It's going to take me too long. I don't have time. Like, it's 100 cards. Just search through them. And of course, I had zilch. I had one first edition, but the card was like bent.
Yes.
It's disrespectful. That's what it is, Andrew. So let's move on, because I can talk cards for day. And to be honest, if you get me into talking Pokemon, it gets bad.
Yeah.
I go back into like 8-year-old Eric. While you guys were toying with stuff, I was a Pokemon trainer. Okay, so
Yeah, right. Well, we were making money at 13.
I was Ash Ketchum. Okay.
Yeah.
Anywho, so let's move forward. You know, Mr. Entrepreneur. You're a young, bustling 7-8-year-old. You're doing all this stuff. Now you're a young teen. Now you're going into college. You get out of college. You get your first job. Tell me about working for someone, because again, we're gonna dive into. You're the guy who people work for. But what was it like that being the guy who was working for someone else? And then what was that specific experience like that led you to where you are today?
Oh man, it's so weird when you know that you like to control your own fate and you've been in charge of things your whole life, and to go work for somebody. It was hard. So I lasted a year to the day in my first job working for somebody. I lasted a year and like 7 days on my next gig working for somebody. Then I got to FTI Consulting. I was there for almost 8 years.
Whoa.
So I say what the difference was there is that's an entrepreneurial type company. They are advisors and strategists, and they're helping everybody else. So they don't have time to tell you what to do, you're helping other people. So that's kind of like the taste of, that's how you figure out, without actually being in charge, they allowed you to kind of learn the craft.
Did you ever find yourself kind of going above and beyond for the companies you worked for, and then realize that it almost wasn't worth it? You're like, well, what's going on here? Like the vibe of your coworkers were just, but you're like, hold on, wait, why? You almost wanted to do more, but then you're like, wait, why isn't everyone else doing it?
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I hate to admit this, but you put in effort. You're working harder than everybody else. You're working more efficiently than everybody else. And then you get to the end of the year and you get a 4% raise and they get a 3% raise. Your slacker buddy who goes to lunch for 2 hours every day, comes in late, calls
Watch
off
the clock
3,
at 4:59.
and you're like, there's got to be a better way than this.
Yeah.
And by the way, I incorporate that is I never want someone to feel like that if you go above and beyond that you shouldn't be rewarded in different ways.
Here's where I'm at. Tell me a little bit about your strengths and weaknesses. And then for me, it's like that interview question, right? It's like, who are your strengths and weaknesses? How do you really look at your weaknesses and change them for the better? And then how do you really own your strengths? Tell me a little bit about that, because I think there's a lot we could do here, because you got 2 young bucks here that have their own set of strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
Looking at you, Andrew. So anyways, tell me a little bit about that and we'll kind of let it ride from there.
So so I should give the typical what's your big, I care too much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was
I work too hard and I get really tired
You're
sometimes.
such a sweet soul, Mike. I tell you that.
That's what the answer. No, that's crap. When people answer like that, I'll throw them out of my office.
Because you're the owner.
Oh yeah, I can do that now.
Yeah. Right. You too.
So I don't think weaknesses. I think what the problem with weaknesses is that it's more not about acknowledging that you have them for what that's worth. So you can address them all you want or perceive to address them, but it doesn't do you any good unless you're willing to acknowledge you have that weakness, know what it is, and get the help you need. So as far as fixing your weaknesses, there's many ways. Some are self-taught. Sometimes you can go to school and do it. Sometimes you can figure it out yourself. But really the key is just being honest with yourself above all else. So that's what I say about in strengths. Just once you've identified them, hopefully the earlier the better, like I did with the math and the business acumen. Just get every piece of training you can. Work with every person you know that can help develop that skill. Just hone it as much as you can.
And I know you mentioned that in your employees, and again, this is a topic that you and I can relate on very well. What about yourself as an owner, as a CEO? Like, when you figure out your weaknesses, not only from stuff that you do personally, but in the workplace, how do you structure that down out to the rest of the team so that way everyone can win and no one gets bogged down because you get stuck doing something?
Well, when you have a glaring weakness, so first of all, I know that I can't draw. I don't care. I haven't worked to fix that. It doesn't really affect my life.
Right.
So sometimes you just can't fix a weakness. So you hire people to fill that gap, right? And then in doing that, when people see that you're vulnerable and you have weaknesses, they're more willing to acknowledge theirs and let you help them and help themselves. So
I was going to make a joke that your weakness was that you can't draw, and my weakness is that all these weaknesses that I could just list all. Versus that your artistic ability isn't up to snuff. What's it like to be you, right?
let's make that clear. That's just one weakness that I specifically pointed out. Right?
Well, so it's interesting, right? And it's interesting how you addressed strengths and weaknesses before, because when you were talking about it, you were giving a solution on how to fix it. And again, you're an owner, you're an operator. You instill that in your people. One thing that is my weakness is it's when I get overwhelmed. I like to fill my plate. And again, very stereotypical answer. I fill my plate so much, I start to become inefficient. Now, I'm a multitasker like it's nobody's job. Like TV on my phone, working, talking to a client, petting my dog, and staring into the sky. And I'm the best.
It's terrible,
right? And my wife, you turn on a TV show or you turn on something, she's like, you can't multitask.
No.
Very similar to the gentleman sitting to my right, two rights over.
That's why you're a good pair. Right?
Yeah, we're two pieces of
balance
pie.
each other out.
Yeah. So it's interesting because that's my weakness, and again, I'm around people like you, and even Andrew, where it's like, hey, take a breath. Let's make a list, and my wife's great at it. Hey, write it down and cross it out. So I've figured out my weakness, but I've addressed it, and I'm able to work on it. So hopefully it becomes a strength. And I know one thing we talked about, I would think one of your strengths is your ability to manage home and work. Would you call that a strength, or would you call it a weakness? Because I'm not looking at someone across from me that I know one of his glaring weaknesses is work-life balance. But tell me a little bit about that, because I think that is a huge strength or weakness for people. It can make or break you.
I'm not sure, for me especially, I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, it's not a strength or weakness. It's simply just a thing that I've learned to adapt to. I mean, you can say, oh, my strength is that I spend all my time with my family or work. It's not. It's just, I've had to, because I love both so much. You're passionate about your work, you love working, you love your family, you love spending time with them. How do you make that work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of people have this misconception that it has to be separate. So what I've strived to do is bring it all together. So even when I do reviews at work, I have people bring their personal goals as work goals and try to mesh them together. Oh, you want to buy a house? Oh, you want to start a family? You want to get this training? Well, let's figure out how we can work that into your daily routine to get you there. And you get your family involved in talking about work. You get your work people, you get to know their family. You know their kids, you know stuff about them, you know their personal lives. So what I always try to do is just blend them together so it doesn't have to be a balance. It just is life.
Okay.
So let's have an intervention with Andrew right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Eric's making a good point here. I have a terrible work-life balance, and it's not necessarily with a family percent. You know, I've got my parents, my brother, my sister, my friends,
Your puppy.
my puppy. But you know, like you mentioned, it's a love. I love what I do, so it's hard for me to stop doing what I'm doing to almost enjoy myself. And I hear from Eric, I hear from my parents, like, you know, I hear from my coworkers. I've had actually a customer. I called at 7 p.m. one night, and they said, "Let's talk about it in the morning. Go home." And I'm like, "Oh, shoot! Like, all right, I guess we'll just see you in the morning." And you know, and it's to my, I guess my purpose is like, I don't mind working as much as I do because I'm seeing the results. It's a slow step. You know, we're building that business. I'm doing what any good CEO should do. I should find where I'm not good at, hire accordingly, grow, you know, not spend too much money, right? All the basics. But, you know, my kind of escape is that my creative mind to invent in my company, right? So I do that 9 to 5, phone here, managing there, and then maybe 5, 6 o'clock, I start jumping on my SolidWorks, right? I'm CADing things up, I'm inventing things, I'm thinking outside the box, which is what I do best, what I love. So it's almost like I'm getting that best of two worlds when everyone's like, "You're working all the time." I'm like, I am, but part of my day is very relaxing. I put on my music. So I guess how, in my scenario, someone like me, how do you best balance all of that? You know what I mean? Give me your opinion. Like what's probably the best way to start? Maybe that first step.
So I think it depends why you're doing it though.
Okay.
Because you have, for you, it's an art of love. You love doing it. You enjoy doing it. I think a lot of where you run into trouble is where you're doing it because you feel obligated to others, whether it's a boss, a customer, a vendor, a money thing. Who knows? Maybe I have people that work tons of hours because they just want to make more money and they'll sacrifice time with their family, but they don't want to do that. Okay. It's a means to an end to provide for their family. So I'm not sure. So it's just acknowledging that you got to stop doing things to live other people's lives and do what they expect. Correct. I think that's really, so I don't think there's any problem with what you're doing. It goes back to what I was saying, how many hours I put in doing real estate and working. Well, that was what I liked doing at the time. I did it with my wife. So it was great.
And it's interesting because, you know, Andrew and I have this podcast and he'll come over, we'll cook dinner and we'll talk business. And maybe I'm selfish in the fact that I work from home. So I'm like, "Hey man, come over, let's work out." He goes, "I'm at the shop, man. This is my home." I'm like, "Stop working so much, man." And in reality, I'm still working too, but I'm in the comfort of my home and I can take a quick break and jump and do something. So I'm trying to find a balance for Andrew because, again, I think he's extremely special that, hey man, when you work 40 hours straight without sleeping, that 41st hour could be really inefficient. So instead of working 40 straight hours, let's work really heavy, strategic 10-hour days, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, whatever. But when you're off, let's do something else you love, or let's get better sleep, or let's take care of your health, which we very much have done workouts together. We diet together. So I'm not worried about him because I'm like, "Dude, you work too much." I love the fact that he works so much because I'm a hustler too. But Christmas Day, I'm like, "Hey man, come spend time with my wife's family. It's Christmas." And he goes, "I'm working that day." And then I tried to pivot and take away that excuse. And then he goes, "I'm babysitting a dog." And I'm like, "Good excuse, Andrew. I guess I won't see you Christmas."
Nice little 4-month-old pup, man.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, no, it's definitely something I think I've made, you know, to Eric's point, is focusing on managing the day better. So, and part of that is the growing pains of my business. Like we're hitting high notes. So, you know, I'm trying to make sure before I go and hire someone for a new position, the workflows, right? There's a little bit of that. But, you know, there is a lot, I tell my employees too, I'm like, I want to try and get in by no later than 8 and leave no later, or stay no later than 8. So I can get a solid day in. And then, I've got the evening to plan what I need to. But, it's, and I think you can agree. I mean, Eric, even you, not that you don't own a business, even just basic life work balance, right? Your wife, your dogs, family. I think all of us and everyone here who's watching can attest that, especially from last year, it is hard to find that balance. And again, to Mike, your point is, I don't think it's a strength or a weakness. I think it's knowing, to your point of like knowing where you want to spend the most time and not feeling bad about doing it.
That's right. Maximizing the time you spend doing things you want to do and are impactful through the day. As much as that you can do, the better. Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to.
But here's where I'm at. And I think you could relate to this because you not only work in his space, you own, operate business. I believe Andrew's at that point where he is about to hit a revenue point and hit an employee point where there's kind of this teeter, right? So he has all this work and he has all these employees. If he hires one too many employees, there might not be enough work. But if he gets too much work, he might not have enough employees. And I believe, and this is just third party looking in, that is what keeps you there, is you take on 50 hats. So then you can't parse that hat out because either you don't have the revenue for it or you don't have the work for it. And you'd rather take that ownership as an owner. So could you speak on that? Like, I'm sure you've been.
I got to say that's the single toughest thing in running and operating a business is that. So my hang up is always HR and IT. Those are the two areas where that always gets me. Now I've been fortunate enough coming into this company, it was already big. So I always kind of had coverage on the machining side. Yeah. But HR and IT, so they say there's these different metrics. Oh, you need one HR person for every 75 people or one IT person for every 50 people. Well, I need 2 at 150. Well, what do you do when you're at 110?
Right.
So, I mean, really what I've always done is push and incentivize that one person or those 2 people that are getting overwhelmed. Incentivize them to know that there's help coming, we're growing and we'll get there. But in the meantime, I need a little extra from you. But this is how you're going to benefit from it. You get extra time on these days, you get this extra bonus. It makes up for it. So that's kind of always how I approach it, is just we're taking really good care of those people that I know are overburdened to the inflection point where you can afford to add that extra headcount. Okay. So that's always how I approach it.
Well, I think it's like you're reading my notes, Mike, because I think you just led right into my next question. Employees and owners and the relationship between them is everything. You being a leader dictates your workforce and vice versa. Talk to me a little bit about how important your employees are, no matter what you're doing, and some of the leadership tactics that you take to make them work harder and make them work for a purpose. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know, Andrew, you can relate, and even I can. I've worked for someone. I've had people work for me. Let's talk about that, because I think that is so important, navigating the internal part of a business appropriately and doing it in a way that is so impactful that it almost feels like you're not the boss anymore.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So as hard as I mentioned the last question was, this one's easy, believe it or not. You just have to take the time to do it. So all I do is think about when I was a worker and an employee working for somebody else, all the things that I really liked and made me passionate about working, and all the things I really disliked. So I've strived at my company to make sure that everything I disliked, I don't do, and everything that I enjoyed about working for others and a company, I do. And that's really all it boils down to, is put yourself in their shoes. Treat them like family, treat them with respect, give them a purpose. If nothing else, we make defense equipment where I am now. Yeah. So what's really impactful is, okay, we make these parts, we stick them here and there, and we look at them, we send them. That's cool. Well, take them to the end customer and show them that they're going in our fighter jets, and show our parts in the fighter jet, do a field trip, and say, look, we're making these for the defense of our country. This is what it goes into. Okay. So that takes the whole just treating people the way you always want to be treated, but then take it to that next level to show the purpose of what they're doing. I think those are the 2 key factors in building this family type. I mean, we've had one person turnover out of 80 people this year in an industry that's very common.
And it's a good segue, because actually just about 3 hours ago, we kind of had a little mock interview with possibly a new machinist. Cool. And, something that I like to always put on to my employees. I think we're at 2 now. This would be our 3rd official, the other 4 being owners, right? So, with the owners, you're not really, they know what they're putting in to grow it. Everyone else is kind of just there because, you hired them, right? But, something that I preface on all of my workers, even my partners, is, we're a family, we're a team. If one of us is struggling or one of us is somewhat of a toxic nature, how do we address that to make sure everyone can still win? Because it's a team effort. If one leg is shorter, we're not going to make it as far. And even during my interview process, I ask a lot of personal questions like, hey man, tell me, what do you want to achieve? What are your hobbies? What do you do on the weekend? I text all my employees. I have their number. If there's anything they ever need help with, all my guys are in the cars. So, it's usually I get a call like, I got to go pick up a part. Can you come with me, or come out of the truck, or can I do this? And we're all usually pretty supportive of one another. We just picked up, I think like a couple months ago, a 4-post car lift where all the guys look at each other and say, hey, there's this 4-post car lift down in Virginia. It's for free. We should go get it. And we all looked at each other and said, lunch break. And we all
got to figure out how to deliver it. That's the hard part.
Yeah. And so I have a 18-foot car trailer that I use for all of our cars. All the guys use it if they're racing on the weekend. And we strapped it all sketchy, this thing, and we brought it back. But the camaraderie, because everyone's like, oh yeah, when this is up, I'm going to do this with my car. Oh, I'm going to do this with my car. And it's great. And we all love it. And having that kind of that bond, for us, it's cars. But, like you said, building that with your employees, learning about them, what their goals are almost critical to build that relationship. Because you're right. That's what we suffered when we wanted that from our employees and we worked for other people. Why not give that to your employees, and everything's going to work out great. So
that's right.
It's interesting that you guys talk about, again, being an owner operator, being in a leadership position. Again, I'm working for someone, but I very much take that approach with my network. And again, the reason why we started this podcast was when we find our guys, I don't think of you as the manufacturing guy. I know you work in manufacturing. I look at you as a leader, a guy who takes care of his people, a guy who attempts to play golf, and we'll talk about that, right? I look at you as a friend. I look at you as somebody as a family. Like when in fact I own, operate a business, if I ever do, I intend to always treat my people like that. And I even treat my fellow colleagues like that. I want to know about you. I care about you. We have expectations against each other. And one thing I'll bring up before we move on is I remember Andrew was telling me how he interacted with one of his employees, and the guy was like, man, I don't know if I should do this or not. And Andrew goes, what happens if you do? What happens if you don't? The guy goes, worst case scenario this. And he goes, I think that's a good risk to take. Make that decision, own that decision. And if it fails, figure it out. And I've always lived by the approach of failing upward. I had a big boss at one point. He always preached, fail up, fail up. I have failed at a lot of things, and I own it. And I recognize it, and I put myself around people that have equally been in situations. And Andrew's instilling failure as an okay option, but you have to take that step. And I think that's entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
Yes.
And I think even one more step further is learning from it, right? And to that point, the story to Eric was mentioned is that, if it did go wrong, what would we learn from that and not do the next time? And Eric said that keep failing. I mean, it's not failing until you give up, kind of thing. So, no, good point, Eric.
Well, speaking about failure, Mike, let's talk about your golf game.
I'm just kidding. I shouldn't even be laughing. I don't even play.
Yeah, you don't even know golf.
No, it's harsh. I should golf with you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Andrew and I talked about golf on the first podcast, and that's how I met Mike. And I want to give you guys that 30-second story. A good buddy of ours, Kyle, shout out Kyle. He's like, I got this guy, right? You got to meet him. And I met him, and I was like, whoa. And I truly mean this, and we'll say it again. I liked you from the minute I met you. I remember we were on the course and you were like, let's have a good time. Let's play music. Let's talk about fun things. Yeah, let's talk about business. And I was like, whoa, you're not real. I really didn't believe that you were real. And Kyle's like, dude, this is who he is. And I remember when we met, I was like, I gotta get back in touch with you. Then we found out we both knew Andrew, and I was like, end game. This is an end game. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about you and your relationship with golf. And because, we talked about your relationship with baseball and relationship with just owning and operating businesses, your family, all that stuff. But like, what does golf mean to you, if anything?
So first of all,
I'm so sorry.
Put him on the spot. Let him get some redemption here.
One thing my dad always said growing up is, I'd rather play with a bad golfer. They have more fun.
Oh, thank God. You were so much fun.
Just saying. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm not going to shoot scratch golf, but I'll throw down some beers, have a cigar,
I take back
tell
everything
some
I said.
jokes.
That's right.
So, which makes me conflicted because I'm like, do I actually want to get good at golf? Because maybe I'll start taking it too seriously.
You actually had it. You have a great swing, and I'm not just saying that to say it. So athleticism is going to work in your favor.
Thank you, but it's the problem is it's not been a focus for me.
Mhm.
I've been focused on other things. Now, what golf means to me is a place where I can get away and compose my thoughts.
I love that.
It's the one place where I can go, know that I can have peace, freedom, fresh air. You have an open course, you can go anywhere. Just relax with good people. I mean, that's what it's all about to me. Because like I said, I'm not good. I'm not horrible. I'm not an embarrassment, but
Yeah, but what brought us together? Golf.
golf.
And I'll say it time and time again. You and I, over those couple of hours, built a relationship that superseded us just grabbing a beer or just talking on the phone. We spent time together, ups and downs, and like the great shots. It was amazing. We celebrated them. We were popping beers and having a good time. And I can't stress this enough. And again, it's going to be a theme throughout. So, you don't like it, I'm really sorry. Golf is so important just because of the competitive nature, but it's also a team sport at the same time. You play with a couple of guys, you're really playing with each other. And when you hit a good shot, I was there with you. Like, it was amazing. So that's why it means so much.
Especially if you're playing a scramble for money.
That means
I'm missing the party, boys.
You
This is
absolutely
bad.
missed it, and I keep telling you, and one day I'll get you.
Yeah. Well, apparently I need to come and play with Mike because he's a little bit probably closer to my level.
Yeah, it's not pretty. I played in a tournament the other day, and I realized quickly I was the best golfer in the group, and that terrified me. Nothing's for sure.
Yikes.
Uh-oh. So anyway,
So I want to kind of round out this podcast, and I can't appreciate you enough, man. Like, you know, we were off camera and we were telling Mike, hey, man, you mean so much to us. And he's kind of looking at us like, okay, whatever, guys. Like, you truly epitomize what Andrew and I strive to be. And it is just an absolute pleasure and honor just being around you, because I've said it time and time again, we are sponges, but it seems like you're a sponge too. And we really feed off of each other. And we have talked about amazing things for the future, partnerships, relationships, finding a way to work together, finding a way to exist together. Like, I want to hang out with you. Like this is truly something that transcends business, but we all have one thing in common, is that we love business. We love entrepreneurship, but we have a good time doing it. So it leads kind of me to my last question, and I'll pass to Andrew if he has anything. If you had one thing to leave to the next generation, the new Generation Z, even our generation of millennials, what is that one thing you would share for them that either you did or didn't do, but something you just want to leave behind to kind of make them a generation that you trust to take over in the future?
so I've thought about this a lot because it's everything. I mean, we're not going to live forever. We have to pass something down. And I think what plagues people these days is that they're forced to take a path that is not natural to them, isn't their purpose. They go to school, they're told, oh, you were a good student, go to college, get this degree. And then they go into it and then they end up doing something completely different. They've wasted 30, 35 years of their time. So what I would say to people, and I did it a little bit, but I definitely could have taken a faster path to where I ultimately wanted to get, is that just try to figure out what your purpose is on this planet is as quickly as possible. Do everything you can to build your strengths, to maximize that. Do everything you can to get rid of the weaknesses, especially the detrimental ones. If what you want to do takes attention to detail, learn how to pay attention to details. So I think if more people went out and did what they were supposed to do, loved doing, you'd have a much happier and purposeful planet. I think we'd all be more productive, and we wouldn't have the craziness going on in the world today. We'd all just do our part to make this world a better place. So pave your own path. That's the advice I give.
Mike, you
Love it.
you said it best, man. I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here in Andrew's basement. This is just an awesome time, and we look forward to this coming out, and we look forward to people reaching out to you. You know, you are our guy. We hope you become other guys. We're going to put all of Mike's information in the description, and we'll make sure that if you need Mike, we'll connect you with him. But thank you, man. Have an awesome beginning of the year, and we just hope for nothing but positivity and success in 2021.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and I can't wait to work with you.
Thanks for being here, Mike.
See you guys.
My
Take
pleasure.
it easy.